Hey you guys, it's your girl T, and I want to come on here and talk about the whole Ben Affleck situation. What's going on is that basically Ben Affleck decided to trace his roots with the help from Louis Henry Gates, and we all know Louis Henry Gates. He has a show on PBS where he goes about helping celebrities and well-known people, trace their heritage and their lineage and everything else. It's almost like a PBS version of Roots. So anyways, he decided to work with Ben Affleck. And as we all know, Ben Affleck is going to be playing Batman soon here. So what's going on is that if you guys remember a few months ago, Sony was hacked supposedly by North Korea, which I thought was bullshit. But in those hacks, they found an email between Henry Louis Gates and one of the Sony executives, Michael Linton. And in that email, Henry Louis Gates was trying to figure out what they should do about the Ben Affleck problem. He said that they had traced Ben Affleck's family roots, and in those roots, his peoples, they were slave owners. They owned several slaves, and Ben Affleck did not want that part being aired. He wanted that edited out. He didn't want the world to know that he comes from former slave owners because it might affect, how people look at him in Hollywood. It might affect his role with Batman. So they decided to omit that out the show. So now this is being made to be public information. A lot of folks are really upset. A lot of folks are really upset at Henry Louis Gates as well, because this comes off as really being disingenuous, because a lot of folks watch his show, because it's supposed to be factual and it's not fair to omit certain things. And other folks are looking at Ben Affleck like, you're an idiot. Why are you so upset about this situation? The past is the past.
Is an acclaimed PBS TV show willing to censor a celebrity's family history if the information proves to be embarrassing? Actor Ben Affleck apparently got PBS producers to censor the fact that an ancestor owned slaves. The View's Whoopi Goldberg had no problem with it.
I think you should be able to say, you know what? This is my family, and nobody in the family is comfortable with this right now.
Here's the reaction on The Talk.
He's a magnificent man, but hey, your ancestor was a slave owner. Live with it. Learn from it.
Affleck appeared on the PBS TV series Finding Your Roots, hosted by famed Harvard professor Henry Louis Gates Jr. His successful attempt at squelching his family history was first exposed in a leaked email in which Gates wrote, "We've never had anyone ever try to censor or edit what we found. He's a megastar. What do we do?" Affleck stars in the upcoming Batman vs. Superman: Dawn of Justice and is one of Hollywood's leading liberal activists. To do this would be a violation of PBS rules, actually, even for Batman, Professor Gates admitted in the leaked email.
To leave that out entirely, and especially to leave it out after it's been requested to be left out, I think that is problematic. Is it career-wrecking problem? I don't know, but I think it is a problem.
When the show did air last October, no mention was made of Affleck's slave-owning ancestor. Instead, he was told he had an ancestor who fought in the American Revolution.
This is a big surprise, and really exciting, and I'm really proud of it.
Affleck has not commented on the uproar. Professor Gates says in a statement, "Ultimately, I maintain editorial control on all of my projects and with my producers, decide what will make for the most compelling program. In the case of Mr. Affleck, we focused on what we felt were the most interesting aspects of his ancestry."
So a lot of people want to know my opinion about this whole situation. And in my opinion, I feel like Ben Affleck should have just been honest about it. At the end of the day, what are we going to do about the situation? You're not about to get your ass whipped because your, family members own slaves. At the end of the day, this is America, so slavery is nothing new. This entire country was built on slave labor. So somebody had to own us, So why is he so surprised that his family, owned slaves, and why would he want that omitted? And another thing that really bothers me about this situation is that sometimes, what I noticed with some white people, they don't want to acknowledge slavery. They don't want to acknowledge the atrocities of slavery and the things that went on back then. They feel like, black folks need to just get over slavery. You need to move on. It was so long ago. Yeah, it was kind of long ago. But at the end of the day, a lot of white folks are still benefiting from slavery. A lot of, this is generational wealth we're talking about. Ben Affleck's family comes from money. So, his family owned slaves and his family is still well-to-do. He went to Harvard, so he's still benefiting from the backs of those slaves that his family owned. But now if you check the black families of the family members of those slaves that were owned, I bet you they're not doing as well as Ben Affleck. So I think, in order to move on from like racism and, slavery and everything else, there has to be an open dialogue. We need to stop running away away from the conversation. You know, not all white people, but some white people need to stop turning a blind eye to it and saying, you know, just get over it. You know, I don't want to talk about it. It was so long ago. I think I would have respected Ben Affleck more had he been honest and be like, you know what, my family did own slaves, you know, and acknowledge that he got a lot of benefit, generational wealth from the slave labor. I mean, me personally, I would have respected him more had he did that than try to omit it. I remember Anderson Cooper, he had traced back his heritage, and he found out some of his family members owned slaves as well. And matter of fact, his great-great-great-great-great-grandfather, he ended up being killed by a slave. So that's how bad his family was. They were mistreating his slaves so bad that his own slaves had a revolt and killed them. But Anderson Cooper kept everything as it was. He didn't try to hide it. He didn't try to omit it. And I think that Ben Affleck should have just did the same too, you know, as opposed to worrying about what folks are going to think about him. Folks are going to judge you off of your ancestors and what your ancestors did a long time ago. Then those are probably people that you don't need to associate with anyways. So anyways, y'all, go ahead and leave a comment. Let me know your thoughts on this entire crazy situation that's concerning Ben Affleck and Henry Louis Gates Jr. How do you feel about this situation? Do you feel like Ben Affleck should feel guilty about his family owning slaves? How do you feel about him lying and omitting it out of his episode? And then how do you feel about Henry Louis Gates as well? Because to me, I'm also upset with him for not being honest and not standing his ground. You know, if you don't want to know about your history, you don't want to know about the past, then you shouldn't go on a show like that trying to look for your history and try to find out who you are. You know, it makes no sense. If you go digging for something, you're eventually going to find it. And that's with anything. I don't care if it's slavery. I don't care if it's with the past. You know, it's just with anything in life. If you go digging enough, eventually you're going to find something. And sometimes those things that you find are not always favorable. So anyways, y'all, go ahead and leave a comment. Let's get the discussion popping. All right, deuces. Hey, YouTube, it's your girl, Lovelyti, and you can show me some love by hitting that subscribe button, watching my previous videos, and following me on social media.